At first glance, it just looks like a normal moment in the kitchen. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. But if you watch closely, like really closely, there's one small detail almost everyone missed. While the camera focuses on the food, Jin's attention isn't just on cooking. It's on Jungkook. Every move feels intentional, every step a little more careful than necessary. And then it happens, so subtle you might not even notice the first time. A quiet gesture, almost invisible, but filled with meaning. Not for the camera. Not for the fans. Just for him. That's when everything changes. Because suddenly, it's not just about food anymore. It's about the way someone shows care without saying a single word. Watch again, and this time, don't blink. The moment lingers longer than expected, as if time itself slows down just enough for something unspoken to take shape. What seemed ordinary begins to carry a different weight, something deeper than a casual scene in a kitchen. Jin continues moving with quiet precision, but now every motion feels deliberate, almost protective, as though he is guarding something fragile that no one else can see. The light reflects softly off the counter, illuminating details that were never meant to stand out. The way he adjusts the placement of the dish, the slight pause before finishing, the almost imperceptible glance in the direction of Jungkook. It is not exaggerated, not performative, and that is exactly why it feels real. There is no need for attention when the intention is already clear, even if only to those willing to look closer. What makes the moment unforgettable is not the action itself, but the restraint behind it. There is something powerful in choosing subtlety over display, in expressing care without drawing focus to it. It creates a quiet tension, one that pulls the viewer in, urging them to search for meaning in every second that passes. And the more it is replayed, the more it reveals. As the scene unfolds, a realization begins to settle in. This was never about cooking. It was about presence. About knowing someone well enough to anticipate what they need without being asked. About showing up in the smallest ways, even when no one is watching closely enough to notice. Fans who revisit the moment begin to see it differently each time. What once felt like background noise becomes the center of attention. Every subtle movement transforms into a clue, every pause into a message. And suddenly, the silence speaks louder than any words ever could. There is something almost cinematic about the way it all comes together, like a story hidden in plain sight. No dramatic reveal, no obvious turning point, just a gradual shift in perspective that changes everything. The kind of moment that doesn't demand attention, but earns it. And maybe that is why it stays with people long after it ends. Because in a world that constantly seeks louder, bigger, more obvious expressions, this quiet act stands out in the most unexpected way. It reminds everyone that sometimes, the most meaningful things are the ones nearly missed. So the next time the clip plays, it feels different. Not because the scene has changed, but because the understanding has. What once seemed simple now carries emotion, depth, and something undeniably real. And that one small detail that almost went unnoticed becomes the very reason no one can look away anymore. The longer the moment is observed, the more it begins to unfold in layers no one expected to find. What once felt like a passing scene now carries a quiet gravity, as if something important was hidden in plain sight all along. Jin does not change his pace, yet there is a growing sense that everything he does is guided by something deeper than routine. Every movement becomes slower in memory, replayed again and again by those trying to understand what they initially overlooked. There is a shift in the atmosphere, almost imperceptible, but impossible to ignore once felt. The space between actions begins to matter just as much as the actions themselves. The silence is no longer empty. It feels intentional, filled with something unspoken that lingers beneath the surface. Somewhere in that stillness, Jungkook remains the quiet center of it all, not demanding attention, yet undeniably the reason behind it. As the clip continues to circulate, viewers begin pointing out fragments that seem too precise to be accidental. The timing of a movement, the careful finishing touch, the subtle hesitation before stepping back. None of it feels random anymore. It feels like a sequence, like something carefully considered but never meant to be explained. And that mystery only deepens the emotional pull. What makes it even more compelling is the contrast between what is visible and what is felt. On the surface, nothing extraordinary happens. No dramatic gestures, no clear turning point. But beneath it, there is an undeniable sense of intention that keeps drawing people back. It creates a quiet tension, one that builds not through action, but through meaning. The more it is analyzed, the more it resists simple explanation. Some begin to wonder if the significance lies not in what is seen, but in what is understood differently by each person watching. It becomes personal in a way that few moments ever do. Everyone sees the same scene, yet feels something entirely their own. Time passes, but the moment does not fade. Instead, it grows. It settles into memory, not as something loud or overwhelming, but as something quietly unforgettable. A reminder that not all emotions need to be declared to be real, and not all care needs to be seen to be meaningful. And just when it feels like everything has already been noticed, another detail emerges. Something even smaller, even more subtle, yet somehow more powerful than anything before it. It shifts the perspective once again, making people question how much more is still hidden beneath what seems so simple. That is what keeps the moment alive. Not the certainty of what it means, but the endless possibility of discovering something new each time it is seen. And with every replay, the feeling deepens, the curiosity intensifies, and the story continues to unfold without ever truly revealing all of its secrets. The moment refuses to settle, as if it knows there is still something left to uncover. Each replay sharpens the focus, drawing attention to fragments that once slipped by unnoticed. Jin remains composed, almost too composed, as though every movement is carefully measured to reveal just enough while keeping the rest hidden beneath the surface. There is no rush, no wasted motion, only a quiet consistency that feels intentional in ways that are difficult to explain. What begins to stand out now is not just what he does, but when he does it. The timing feels precise, almost as if it aligns with something beyond the visible frame. A pause that lingers a fraction too long, a final adjustment that seems unnecessary yet deliberate. It creates a subtle tension, one that pulls the viewer deeper into the moment, searching for a meaning that refuses to fully reveal itself. In the background of it all, Jungkook becomes more than just an observer. His presence shapes the atmosphere, even in stillness. There is something about the way the space feels around him, something that makes every small action from Jin seem directed, intentional, almost protective in nature. It is not obvious, and that is exactly why it resonates so strongly. As the clip continues to circulate, interpretations begin to evolve. What was once seen as a simple act now carries emotional weight, and that weight only grows with each new perspective. Viewers start to question whether the true meaning lies in the action itself or in the intention behind it. And the more they search for answers, the more the moment expands beyond what can be clearly defined. There is a quiet shift that happens when a moment like this lingers long enough. It stops being just a scene and becomes something else entirely. A story without clear boundaries, shaped by emotion rather than explanation. Every detail becomes a piece of something larger, something that feels deeply personal despite being shared by millions. And then, almost unexpectedly, the realization begins to take form. Not as a sudden revelation, but as a slow understanding that builds over time. This was never meant to be obvious. It was never meant to demand attention. It exists in that delicate space between what is shown and what is felt, where meaning is not given, but discovered. That is what keeps people coming back. Not the certainty, but the mystery. Not the clarity, but the emotion. Because somewhere within those quiet seconds, there is something real enough to be felt, yet subtle enough to remain just out of reach. And just when it seems like the moment has given everything it has to offer, it shifts again. A new detail, a new perspective, a new layer waiting to be uncovered. The kind that changes everything once more, leaving behind a feeling that lingers far longer than expected.